Hello, everyone. I'm Ruth Samalo, one of the features programmers for Doc NYC, and it's my great pleasure to introduce you to the Q&A of Red Heaven. And I have directors Katherine Gorringe and Lauren DeFilippo with us for the Q&A. Welcome both. How are you?
Thank you. We're doing good.
Um, so I had so much fun watching your film, and I wonder, let's start from the beginning. How did you both get inspired to take this mission to Mars and to bring us along with you? What's the origin story of this brilliant project?
Well, Lauren and I went to grad school together in the Stanford documentary film and video program. And when we were graduating, we knew we wanted to get together. And it was in this moment when the space age was kind of coming back. Like now we take it for granted, but there was this long dormant period where NASA really wasn't doing very much. We weren't hearing about it very much. And there were all these kind of new dreams coming from Elon Musk, coming from NASA itself about being able to put human beings on Mars. And while this conversation was kind of starting, we were in the heart of Silicon Valley, where there's this like kind of utopian technology, or living in the future, and this is kind of what's in store for humanity. And Lauren and I just looked around like, there's a climate crisis, there are all these issues facing our entire globe. There's something going on here existentially about this dream of going into space. And so we started to kind of research the idea, and we started with this big idea, and then we found the High Seas Project. And when we first read about it, we were just like, this is it.
And what was the relationship with the space agency and with the scientists themselves? Like, how did you gain their trust and access? So you can, and then you can tell us a little bit about how did you devise the production so we can see everything that's happening with them?
Sure. So, so this is both Katherine and I's first feature directing. And so I think in some ways we were kind of naive, but that worked in our favor. Essentially, we had started to get in touch with the High Seas program, the people who run the experiment that you see in the film, and were asking if we could film. And of course, they were like, no, this is a rigorous science experiment. Are you crazy? You can't be here. That will totally make the whole simulation ineffective. And so basically we kind of just went out on a limb, and we heard that they were going into training for this next year-long mission, which was the longest that they had done so far. And we kind of just dropped what we were doing and flew to Hawaii. And in the course of it, they were training in Hawaii. We got to meet the crew, we got to meet the lead researchers, and basically the researchers told us that if we could get the crew's buy-in, if they would essentially agree to film for us, that they would allow our cameras inside the dome. And so we spent about 2 weeks with the crew as they were in training, and I guess won them over. And so when they entered that dome, they had our cameras in their hands, and then we were in touch with them over the course of the year. Through email, which was on a delay, but still kind of allowed us to, direct them remotely.
Tell us a little bit about your process of going back and forth with them and giving them particular directions based on their footage that they were sending you, because I presume it wasn't as good as we see it the whole time. And also, if you had any conversations with them regarding like their mental state, if the filming of these confessional beautiful moments with the camera was helping them or not. Tell us a little bit about how did you directed the emotional and technical aspects of the films in the distance.
I think we got really lucky with our subjects because they just were so willing to record their lives and kind of put these intimate moments on camera. Some of them had way more experience shooting with cameras than others did. And sometimes we would get this like glorious footage of them exploring these caves on simulated Mars. And then sometimes we would get back like a 3-second shot of someone on a treadmill, and we were just like, oh no, that's so short. And so sometimes we were like coaching them, just actually like set the camera on a tripod and just like record an entire dinner, and we'll figure out how to use it in the edit, which is basically what we did. And then they had so much, they were so inundated with media attention there were all these different websites and broadcasters that were interested in this experiment. And so I think once we started asking different kinds of questions that weren't like the typical questions that they were getting asked for like a 30-second, 3-minute news piece, that was actually kind of refreshing for them, especially when they had been in there for so long. They were kind of desperate for a new kind of socializing, and the camera became this way for them to open up and talk more about their experience with someone that they hadn't seen all day, every day for 300 days.
And how did you, because there is beautiful shots, establishing shots of the base itself from the outside. So did you have a camera also hanging out outside by them, or is that something that you shot before or after?
It was something that we shot before and after. We went to Hawaii quite a few times in the course of making this film. And we weren't allowed to be anywhere near the dome as the simulation was actually happening. But, before they went in and afterwards, we were able to film our own kind of scenics of the space. And that was just so important to us because we really wanted you to feel, quote unquote, Mars, and really feel the planetary aspect of it. And also the isolation of just how far out there they were and what a kind of different, unique landscape.
And were you aware, because I think that this film resonates so much more now in the era of COVID, just because one of your main themes is that of isolation and boredom and, existential angst kind of, brought about by close counters confinement. So did you have this in mind? Was this one of the themes that you knew was going to transpire? And what can we learn? What have we learned, or what have they learned? Have you ever talked to them about it that could be useful for all of us in terms of dealing with the future of confinement?
Well, definitely this film was cast in a brand new light around the time that we were finishing it, right when COVID hit the United States. And immediately we were just noticing, because obviously it was happening more, the lockdown happened first in Europe, and we were just hearing these things about someone running a marathon on their porch back and forth. And that's a scene in our film, Tristan on the treadmill running a marathon. And so there are all these little ways where it's just like these coping mechanisms that are so human, just like exercise and food and togetherness, being able to appreciate being outside when you're able, which they got to do in a very different way because they had to wear full spacesuits. But there's something deeper, I think, that we saw in what their experience was, which is this ability to come together and being able to work towards a common goal that really helps people get through a great amount of stress and isolation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just the ability to adapt really was so striking. And I'll also just say, this film really started for us in many ways as a climate film, and the idea of really being isolated from your own planet, really just, kind of so in such a foreign place and not having that contact with what you're so familiar with, really was a kind of a genesis of it all for us. And so, we hope that people can kind of also see it in that light, and just how really interconnected with our environment we are.
And also falling in love doesn't hurt.
Right? Yeah, that also helps. It's a good coping mechanism.
It's gonna happen no matter who goes into a dome.
Was that anything that they were telling you that they were kind of not super comfortable sharing, or was that once the ball keep rolling, everybody was okay, we're all in with the good and bad words and all?
Yeah, well, I think you can tell from watching the film that these are professionals, and we always joke that it's we didn't cast our own film. It was cast for us because they were chosen as participants in the science experiment. And then they were specifically chosen for being people who were undramatic, that were even-keeled. Mm-hmm. And now we're trying to make a film about people who completely lack drama, which is kind of a funny task. But you can tell, even with the romantic relationship in the film, that they weren't letting it get in the way of the mission, that they really kind of wanted to keep it professional and be adult about it and all those kinds of things. And so I think there were things like that they were kind of like, I can talk about this, but I'm going to talk about it in a way that is really, I'm still prioritizing the mission and the science and the data being collected here. Was there anything else like that, Lauren?
No, I mean, they were hesitant to talk about the relationship for sure. That one took us a while to kind of draw out. So yeah, that was sort of the big one. But yeah, they just all really wanted to maintain their professionalism and really kind of the importance of what they felt they were doing with, using this research is really what future missions to Mars could be based on.
And it speaks to what people deal with, or what NASA deals with real astronauts, which is that even when things are dire or going really poorly, they're like, we're great.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're people that like don't want to let anything get to them. And that's what we need for these people who go to space. And it's, we've heard people say that it's kind of this impossible combination of traits to have, because on the one hand, you have to be courageous and brave and kind of just crazy enough to want to go to Mars. But at the same time, you have to be completely unflappable. And, that's a lot of what we got in our footage, that we were like, oh, this is a specific kind of person.
And I love that you mentioned that you guys started this project with, with like a substrate of ecological concern. But in a way, I think this leads me to the idea of like, well, we're doing so poorly with our own planet that like, should we really be thinking about colonizing another one? Was this ever part of conversations or I don't know, should we be looking into getting along better with each other in this one and try and fix it rather than figure out how to survive in another one? Is there something along these lines that you guys are thinking about through the making of this process?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I feel like Katherine was kind of being more subtle about it in her introduction to the project, but when we first kind of conceived of this, we were living in Silicon Valley. There were all these space entrepreneurs talking about Mars as though it's our backup planet. They really refer to it as a plan B, and we just thought that was bonkers. Like we can deal with our stuff here on Earth. Like, let's come together and figure that out, rather than just take our problems elsewhere. So that was certainly, something that was really kind of motivating us throughout making the film.
And something that was really refreshing, just to finish, was kind of like, this is like an ode to scientists and the pure love of the science, because every one of these 6 humans, it's just like really in love with their, their practice and their professional relationship to science. And it's really nice to see that passion just driving them through, the ups and downs of like a whole year of isolation. So what can we learn from the scientists to live better?
It's really great to hear you say that, because that was kind of our experience making the film. Because like Lauren said, we almost started with this heavy note of skepticism about this effort to go to Mars. And after spending years with these people in this project, we kind of realized that there's this whole community of people who aren't like, let's go stick a flag in Mars and name a mountain after myself. Mm-hmm. They're there because they want to do science and they want to collect data and they want to learn about other planets. And there's all these different lines of inquiry, like about comparative planetology, where if we could learn about climates and systems on Mars, it's going to help us learn a lot more about Earth, especially as we go forward into an era of climate crisis. And so I think we kind of like fell in love with that idea in the end, that it's, the reason to go is to really ask these larger questions and pursue these larger questions. And, that's something we can get behind, but not the colonialism aspect of it.
Right.
Well, thank you so much for sharing this amazing film with us, and hope to see you soon. Thank you, Lauren. Thank you, Katherine.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you so much.